The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Okay, so continue on, Jim. We're going to get into the birth certificate issue here and what you may know, what you think you may know. Go right ahead.
Well, there are parts of what I know that I can't even speak of, and that has to do with my swearing an oath, and also the fact of the Secrets Act, we'll call it that, but that requires us to not share certain pieces of information that we might have. What I will share is what I know I can share, and I, like you and anyone else who knows about the birth certificate itself, you know it's a fake, you know it's a fraud, you know it was presented as being the real one, unlike what's being stated right now about Obamacare, that you can keep your physician. Now we have a president who's backing away from what he said and was recorded on almost 30 occasions publicly. So it's interesting to see this kind of behavior on his part, which lends, it kind of takes away from any credibility the man might have. But for him to present a document which was obviously fraudulent, layer upon layer of photoshopped work, was kind of unbelievable, that this sort of thing would take place. But, it really means that anything he does put forward to prove that he is or is not what he says he is, has got to have suspicion wrapped around it because of just who he is and how he's been and the things that he's doing even now that just render his credibility is totally shredded. So as far as the birth certificate itself is concerned, what do I know? I know that it's a fake. I know it's a fraud. We know that there is no record at Kapiolani Hospital, and no one there will actually sign on anything to attest to his being born there. The documents have been sought.
You're right about that, Jim. I want to just interrupt you for 1 minute. I want to talk about Kapiolani, but I want to be fair to the chat room. We have a huge audience in the chat room. And I'm getting a question in the chat room, and it says, if you were in the CIA, didn't Paul Valley say CIA experts stated the birth certificate was a forgery?
I'm not sure what Paul said, although I've been on programs with Paul, and Paul has backed my assertion about the litmus test of the military leadership of the country. He's backed me up on that and said publicly that I'm 100% correct in what I stated in January the 21st, as a matter of fact.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. As far as Kapiolani, since you mentioned it, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show. We already know that Mike Zullo went there. I had him on the program numerous times. He actually took questions last night. He stated that he went to Kapiolani Medical Center. He knocked on the doors, went in. They went in with the sheriff's deputy for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office also. They would not acknowledge Obama was born there. No acknowledgement, no plaque, no papers, no brochure, nothing in the lobby. I had a caller a couple of weeks ago, Phil from Connecticut, who also called in last week. Phil, you cannot call in with 60 seconds left and think I'm going to be able to answer all your questions. Okay. He asked me if I've ever been to New Haven, Connecticut, and my answer was yes. And then he went on to say, do you know George Bush was born there? I happen to know that George Bush was born there. And there's only like a handful of presidents, 3 or 4 that were actually born in hospitals over the last few decades. Well, moving on. He said, well, there's no plaque in front of the hospital. Well, I did some research, and I got back with the answer, and the answer is no, there is no plaque according to the hospital. But according to the hospital, there is a pamphlet and a brochure stating that George Bush was born in that particular hospital, a president of the United States. Okay, Jim, I apologize. I wanted to get out there, and I just wanted to say that, so continue right on.
No problem at all. We know, I've talked to Mike, I've talked to Joe Arpaio. We've had communication, and not always about this particular issue, but we've had conversations. And all I can say is that So much effort, so much money, so many federal dollars have been spent to protect and shield any of the information that should be, to an honest person, should be open to anyone having a look. And it's not with Mr. Obama. He's hiding things. He's multi-layered in terms of what he's trying to keep people from actually knowing, because there's so many twists and turns in his background that are not straight. The fact that monies have come to him as a result of an effort on the part of Valerie Jarrett's father to see that Arab oil money was utilized for the education purposes and the backing of good, bright, young black men and women that Mr. Jarrett had encouraged the Arabs to support as part of an ongoing effort over a period of time. And sure enough, they did it, and Mr. Obama was one of the first beneficiaries of that largesse.
Interesting. I guess if you follow the trail of the money, that might lead somewhere. That's what they always say anyway, right?
Always follow the money.
Yep. And there was a lot of money involved in this. Dr. Garrow, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, multiple layers of money, and that's what distinguishes this whole thing as being a bought and paid for circumstance. I mean, anyone else who receives money from a foreign entity and then makes decisions based on the foreign entity's needs has got to set off an alarm, a red flag in the minds of anyone looking in from the outside. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out what's going on here.
Yes, you're right about that. Dr. Garrow, there's been a lot of confusion, even today when we present the sheriff kits and we have our meetings with our congressmen, chief of staff, and lawyers and senators, actually. The response that we get is astonishing. He was born in the United States. He's a natural-born citizen. It was handled already. But wait a minute. Excuse me. That's not what Where's Obama's birth certificate is about. We're not saying where he was born. What we are saying is this fraudulent documents, that birth certificate that's on the White House website, the selective service stamp that was altered and forged upside down 8, the Social Security number, which was issued in Connecticut, no connection to Obama whatsoever, and other supporting evidence. I mean, we've got Obama being born, then being adopted, going to Indonesia, coming back as a Barry Soetoro, hanging out as a Barry Soetoro, another name I can't even pronounce, Sobaka, and then coming back here and then living with Frank Marshall Davis for I don't know exactly how many years. I think from the age of 10 to 15, being mentored by him, and I understand he was given whiskey. And I know Frank Marshall Davis was not the greatest person in the world. I mean, a really bad person. And then all of a sudden going to Pakistan, and then coming back with another name, and then going to this school, and then disappearing again, and then maybe going to this school again, but he has no college records that we can't see. I mean, what's going on here? What kind of past has this man had?
Yeah, it's just a cover-up. It covers up the truth of what he's done. I mean, there's some people who say he was an agent of the American government. Well, he was not an agent of the American government. The fact that he traveled to Pakistan and Afghanistan, by the way, people seem to have dropped that off the conversation for some reason. But he traveled on a British passport, which is what he had, having been born in Kenya. I'm saying it out loud. Having been born in Kenya, which was a British protectorate at the time, and therefore he was eligible to have a British passport. American passport holders were not granted visas to go to Pakistan when he went. So interesting circumstance. Mind you, his bed buddy that he went with was from Pakistan, the guy he lived with in the apartment. doing his chong.
Yes. And didn't he drive a Mercedes?
The Pakistani did, yes.
I thought he had a Mercedes in the United States. There were reports of him and his friend pulling up to parties in the Mercedes. What I'm trying to get at is there was money involved in that family.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, there was. Yeah. And, you know, if you take a look at the Fulbright Scholarship, it provided living money as well. So we were talking about somebody who double-dipped and triple-dipped. You know, he had money coming in from all sorts of sources.
Okay, great. Well, after coming back from Pakistan, he came back, he left as Barry Soetoro, and he came back as Barack Obama. I mean, that's truly amazing.
And you're talking about, you mean the refinding of his Muslim roots? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know about refining of Muslim roots. I mean, I can't point to that. There's no evidence in that. We've never called him anything except Barack Obama. I know people say tendency to have Muslim roots. If you're in an Indonesian country, I guess you would have to have some kind of tie to Muslim roots. If you went to an Indonesian school, I guess you would have to be subject to some kind of Muslim service or way of being brought up. But we have no evidence of that other than, you know, reports, people doing that.
We have evidence.
What?
The evidence is
What,
really
you have
simple.
a smoking gun?
It's the registration documentation from the school, which says that he...
I've seen that. Why don't you go into that a little bit? I've seen that and I've read that.
His religion is put down as Islam to get into the school. You know, he actively was a practicing Muslim for the years that he was in school in Indonesia. And I don't know too many people who are Christians who, you know, fake their way through all of the rigors of 5 times a day praying. And of course, he stated publicly that the sweetest sound that he'd ever heard was the call to prayer. You know, and having the right accent and calling it, which is interesting in and of itself. But, you know, you have a man who's taken on a persona and has played many different roles. And I really wonder if he even knows who he really is. Is he that, you know, damaged a person in his psyche that he doesn't really know who he is?
You know, I'd like to remind the audience, this has been on my blog. We have where'sobama's.com, and then I have a blog associated with that. You can go to the website, click on the blog on the top, sort of in the middle, or you can go to where'sobama's.com/blog. On the right-hand toolbar, if you scroll down, for some reason, I put this up. Glenn Beck, who claims he's not a birther, actually, he says that we're all crazy. We have to show him one piece of evidence, he says. Anyway, the day before the last election, the last presidential election, on the Blaze, Glenn put out that Indonesian certificate, school certificate registration form that Jim has just talked about. I have it there on my blog. You can click on it and enlarge it and read it, and it says just what he says. And it is what it is. We didn't make it up. It's been verified to be true. It just adds one more thing to the puzzle. You know, I want to stop here for 1 minute. I want to take a call too, Jim. We have a couple of calls waiting, and you are going to be on for a while. Any other president, and I'm not talking about George Bush. This is not about George Bush. Any other president besides Barack Obama, or besides what the progressive left wants, or who they want, that would have been the end of it. That would have been the end of the presidential candidacy for that person. Any one of these things would have been the end of it. They would have stalked, haunted, trailed, 24/7, pushed, dug up any information they came, and that candidate would have been out. But because it's Barack Hussein Obama, it's all looked aside. It's well beyond any kind of reasonable doubt. It would make a person insane when you put it all together, and they didn't know about this, and you told them that. Anyway, do you agree with that, Jim, with all the little things adding up?
Oh, absolutely. And there's so much more about the man's life, and so much more about his associations and the multitude of strange things. If we want to, and strange would be a mild a mild word. A more extreme word would be treasonous things, treacherous things, traitorous things. Those would be the words that I would use directly based on what I know. And when you go to China and you discover that his brother is a partner with the intelligence community of the People's Liberation Army in the internet business, owning internet cafes where, in fact, hack attacks on the internet in America come from, you got to say to yourself, wait a minute here, that's the guy's brother?
Good point. Good point. And we're going to get into that a little later on here. Jim, we're really on the move here. I just want to take one or two quick calls while the callers are waiting on hold. I don't like them to wait too long. Okay, I'm going to move on here, and what we're going to do is I'm going to go, and once again, the lovely Ruth is in the call screening room. I want to thank her for that. And later on in the second hour, we're going to have Mickey Booth on, and tomorrow night it's going to be Viviano Patino, and then the second hour will be Rudy Davis. And if you want to get a hold of us tonight, it's 347-989-8853. Okay, with that, Pam in Wisconsin, get ready. I'm going to bring you on here. Pam in Wisconsin, you're on with Dr. Jim Garrow.
Hi, how are you? I have a question. I'm just wondering about national security and how come it's not just presented as a national security issue? I don't seem to think that this is a political issue. It's more on a national security issue. And another thing, he said in one of his books, The Audacity of Hope, that if the winds had changed, changed something to the effect that if the winds had changed and they became ugly, he would go with the Muslims. Well, I mean, that's more or less just saying whatever happens, he's going to go with the Muslims, He's going to be nice until, of course, the winds change, and then he's going to be probably as ruthless as we see in the Mideast that the Muslims can be. And I think it's just a matter of time. And he said that himself. This is not my saying that. That's him saying it. So he already said that he would be with the Muslims. And this is a national security issue. This is not a political issue. And John Kennedy, the President of the United States, what I always defuse when people say, oh, you're conservative, I say, what about John Kennedy? He was a great American. He loved America. Many Americans loved him. We have somebody in our White House who he's destroying our country.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right.
Thank you for the call, Pam.
Yeah, can I answer that call?
Yes, you can.
Oh, great, and she's absolutely right, Pam. You're on the money. We had a great president who spoke to the whole issue of our loyalties and where our loyalties should lie. And he said it very, very well about the fact that we should all be Minutemen, which means that we're prepared to fight if need be, to take up arms for the cause of America. And that's not coming from somebody who was considered to be a right-winger, and yet he was a middle-of-the-road, really, by today's standards, he was a middle-of-the-road American patriot. And look how he was dealt with. But you're right. Look at Mr. Obama has decided that NASA its purpose is no longer to go where no man has gone before and to excite the nation and to go out and explore things that need to be explored in space. Now it's to mollify the Muslim nations and to make them feel good about themselves. You've seen so many things that have twisted the original purposes, but Mr. Obama has decided that's appropriate and that's the direction he wants to take the nation. So Sharia law is starting to peak up all over the place. And it's because these people now feel emboldened to go and make demands because they feel that they have a Muslim brother in the White House.
Thank you, Dr. Garrow. About the Muslim issue, I have to be careful about that. I've grown up with Muslims my entire life. They've been in this country for years, never a problem. Only because now we have President Obama in there. They're going to use that as an excuse, as a way of attacking us. oh, you don't like Obama because you think he's a Muslim or he likes Muslims. No, we don't. It's not we don't like Obama because of that. There's a birth certificate out there. This has nothing to do with Muslim or the Jewish religion or any religion or the Buddhist religion or any religion at all. It's nothing to do about Muslim. And yes, you're probably right about that. I do remember the comment when the administrator of NASA, I don't remember his name, did say that the president asked him that. And I thought it was kind of strange that we toned down the space program. I could see now that the privatization is actually taking off. We've got people out there testing rockets all the time, and before you know it, we can just hop in a rocket and say, let's go to Mars, put the meter on, Cabby, and there we are. I'm glad that we're able to do that and privatize that for space exploration. That should create a lot of jobs. Pam was also right with the security issue. If he's not eligible, with all these aliases, being in this place, having this name, going one place, coming back with another name, being adopted, going to this school, going to that school, he was this person, he was that person. I mean, that's got to be pretty scary to, I don't know how he even made it this far. Okay, let's see. Let's move on. Jim, you want to cover anything else? Let's see, we were talking about Frank Marshall Davis. I think that's where we were.
Well, you know, keep in mind that this young lady, his mother, was pregnant, was underage, went over to Kenya, and in Kenya, what people are telling us, of course, the grandmother and people in the village say that he was born there, in Kenya. There are many people who say that Frank Marshall Davis is in fact the father, and that's, you know, neither here nor there really. The long and the short of it is that if he was born in Kenya, is he eligible to be president of the United States? Is he? I'm asking the host.
No.
No. It's fairly simple, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because then he was under in a British protectorate, not under the jurisdiction of the United States. And birth, being born of the mother and father who were American, well, she couldn't confer American citizenship because she was a minor. If she had been of age, that could have been transferred over, but she wasn't.
Let me ask you this question. I'm trying to put it. Okay, you asked me if he was born in Kenya, would he be eligible? No, growing up in grade school, we know that. We know why that was done. That was done when our country was formed, to make sure that the President of the United States was loyal to this country, had no influence to any other country. We were still growing. We still had to watch our backs from the British. Let's say Obama wasn't Obama. He was a person that we just knew about, because we've never questioned any other presidential candidate in history. We just knew where their roots were. They had a timeline. We knew where they grew up. You could tell. Everybody knew him. They worked, you know, as they grew up, worked in a hardware store, worked their way through school, etc. Let's say it was candidate A. Let's say it was John Kennedy, and his parents were called to duty, military, and they went to Kenya. And while his parents were serving in the military, he was born on a military base in Kenya. Would he be eligible for presidency?
Yeah, he would. Yeah, because his parents would take with them citizenship, and they were stationed in service of the country. So the son would have been born as an American citizen. The transferring of that citizenship from both parents assured that. The fact that they were serving as diplomats or whatever that might be, military folks, that would also secure citizenship. Yeah, that